everybody, and welcome to another video with me, Clip. Today we're going to be going over my favorite class, which is the Warlock. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions on how to properly play the Warlock, how to properly build the Warlock, and so I decided that I was going to go over this today. Now, for those of you who do not know, or have just looked at Skyforge and don't know what the Warlock's about, the Warlock's a broom-wielding maniac that uses crows, cats, and other forms of very, let's say, dark or misunderstood wildlife to do their damage. Now, when going to build the Warlock, you want to focus with these abilities: Envoys of Taint, Ring of Fire, Volatile Curse, and for utility purposes, Bewitched. For the talents, you want to go with Terrifying Swarm. This allows you to have some form of CC without having to focus on your symbols. This is best used when fighting a large mob. What you do is you hold down three charges, which is essentially just a fully charged left-click attack. Send it out. Once it hits the target, you follow it up with the right click, and it spreads it to everything else. This talent, what that does is when you spread it, it causes fear, and then they run around scattered for 2.5 seconds. Plague Wind. This is another very important talent. This allows you to put the full duration of the damage over time skill on every target that's affected by your right click. And then I follow it up with Family Broom. For each stack of Taint on the affected target, damage from Living Helper and Envoys and Taint is increased by 12%, and damage from Bewitched Fire, which we do not use, so just go ahead and ignore that part. And then I follow it up with Witch Circles. Murder of Crows and Ring of Fire inflict 20% more damage. And then I also follow it up with Bird Apocalypse, which increases the damage of your damage over time, and boosts damage on something you want to avoid having to use for the most part. You then follow it up with the Art of Killing. What this does is while you're in extermination stance after you've clicked 1, it allows your left click to not cost mana. This is very important, for it allows you to fill the gap between having to do other abilities while your abilities are on cooldown. I follow it up with Flying on a Broom, which allows you to have a longer dash, and incoming damage gets reduced by 80%. And then I follow it up with Dark Pact. What this does is allows Bewitched, Evil Eye, Murder of Crows. It allows the cooldown to be reduced by 50%. Now this is very important. This is another very important talent that I use, simply because it allows me to do the combo more frequently. Now we're going to move on to equipment. With equipment, you need a very specific weapon. Every other weapon will not allow you to do as much damage as you need to break your Volatile Curse while solo, or to almost break it while on a 5-man and or 3-man. And that weapon of choice is going to be a purple staff that looks exactly like this one here. Its ability is, for the duration of Living Helper, Taint inflicts 5 times more damage. Now the scales. I went ahead and grabbed some staves earlier that shows that if you have a blue, it's only 4 times. If you have a purple, it's 5 times. A green is 3 times. And that's just kind of how it scales. Now that I've finally said that, I can disassemble these because they've been taking up my inventory. Now you have these other 2 weapons. You have your damage over time, which is called your Taint, to inflict more damage. Now this obviously scales the same way in the other weapon. However, for this build, if you can't get the first weapon that I mentioned, this is a close second. Now, this other weapon is for something that's not pertinent to our build at all. However, it can help. Basically, you need to use your C ability more frequently, which is Evil Eye, and increases the damage dealt to enemies under the effect of Evil Eye. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble that now. So, back towards equipment. This talisman right here that increases the duration of Murder of Crows for as long as it inflicts damage to more than 3 or more targets and increases the duration. This is useful This is very useful. However, I find one a little bit more useful than this. However, I haven't found one that gives me a decent stat upgrade. Now, what it is it reduces damage taken as long as you're channeling for your mana, which is called Dark Pact. For Dark Pact, you stay stationary, you cannot move. You want to get a purple one for that because it reduces the damage as much as it possibly can. Now, we're going to move on to rings. Now, rings aren't exactly perfect. However, they follow as such. This is a strength luck build. So, you want critical chance, you want strength and luck as your primary stats. Now, if you can't find enough strength luck rings that are giving you a decent amount of stat increase, the next following will be a strength spirit, because your left click while you're in extermination stance activates impulse charges. This is acceptable because you're constantly spamming that in between your rotation. Next, Valor Luck. I have this simply because I didn't have a Strength Luck ring and this offered critical chance and luck. You only really want Strength Luck and a little bit of Spirit if you can't find fully Strength Luck. And then my following ring is another ring that I just recently got and I'm very happy for. Another Strength Luck increase with a critical chance increase as well. That's how your rings should look. Now moving on to amulets. You have two abilities that you're really focused on increasing the damage of, and that is Murder of Crows and Living Helper. There are such amulets that specifically only increase those two abilities. However, I have, as you can see, struggled to find those amulets. So primarily you want Murder of Crows and Living Helper to be your primary ability upgrades when you're focusing on amulets. Now, I am going to move on to the order and what is best for your character. Now, this is where you're going to diverge off the path to a lot of other Warlocks. You're going to be running double accuracy, crit chance, and shield power. Crit chance over shield power over a majority of other things. Accuracy is above crit chance to a degree, it's about equal. I have radiation on this one, which is a mistake. I am trying to unlock Crushing Blow. Crushing Blow is going to be a little bit better. Crit chance is also obviously very acceptable. However, seeing as though I already have, and I clicked on the wrong thing, seeing as I already have one really high crit chance, it's going to be a tough choice for me between Crushing Blow and crit chance. And then on my last temple, I have Discharge Recovery, which is okay. For this, you can go with Discharge Recovery, you can go with range damage. This one's one of those iffy ones because it doesn't give us exactly the perfect grab. Now moving on from temples, we're going to go into, let's see, what's next? That's right, symbols. So, for an evasion symbol, since this is quicker, right now I'm only maxing out the mechanoid tree simply because that's going to be one of the first enemies that I'm able to fight as an avatar. Now, this is important for those who have received sparks of any kind for any of these invasion atlases. You do not want to max any of these with sparks. You want to just store your sparks and save them for right before you go into an avatar fight. However, I had already started building into mechanoids, and that was my fault, my mistake. However, I went ahead and tried to make the best of a bad decision, and I grabbed Electromagnetic Pulse. Basically what this does is it increases the impulse damage that I do to shields. Now this is great for me because my Volatile Curse is a shield, so it increases the damage that I do to a shield. Now everybody running with a Warlock running this build should be running this invasion symbol. I have Dazzling Flare, which isn't as important. If I had a different one to use, I wouldn't use this one. And then I have Electrostatic Attacks damage. What this does is if you strike an enemy with impulse damage, it leaves a mark on them, and if they do not move for 2 seconds, they take additional damage, which is great. Because, like I said, in between your rotation, you're constantly going to be spamming that. Now, as for the main common symbols, you're going to be running the trio: Spirit, Luck, Strength, Ultimate Strength, Maximum Recoil, and Impulse Intensity. You're going to be running Element of Surprise. Now what this does, you need 3 stacks of it to get the best effect, because that's as many as you can grab. This will increase the damage of your Volatile Curse, which is your most damaging ability, as long as you break it within the first 8 seconds of the fight, giving you the potential in 3-mans and 1-mans to, 3-mans and 5-mans to completely and utterly one-shot the boss. Now I'll follow this up with more shield power from Reinforced Shields, which is in the Mechanoid tree, Quantum Capacity, which is in the Mechanoid tree. This increases impulse damage. It's not as helpful, but it's there. Impact. I had this one just because it was on the direction of one of the things that I was unlocking. It helps. It gives you a little bit more CC. Sometimes it's not exactly an end-all, meet-all. You're going to be running Impulse Barrier for your defenses. Discharge Recovery, that way while you're spamming your left click, you have some impulse to use. You're going to be using Painful Spasm as the Lacerating Wound. The Lacerating Wound builds off the fact that it's a crit build. Painful Spasm builds off the fact that you're spamming your impulse ability. Strength and Unity is another very important thing that every DPS should be running. This increases the might by 25% for every ally of another attacking class within 40 yards. This also stacks with the other people running it. And then you have your 2 abilities that you should always be running no matter what class you are, which is Divine Intervention and Shroud of Light. I went ahead and grabbed this one. Do not grab this one if you have something better to use. I just didn't have a talent symbol that I wanted to use, so I just went ahead and grabbed it. You want to go ahead and unlock Cold Calculation. You want to go ahead and get Under Cover of Darkness. You want to go ahead and get Gravitational Kinetic Symbol. Let's go with that. You want to get the symbol for Alchemist. The symbol, obviously, for Warlock is going to be your main symbol that you're really going to need because it directly affects your class. And then I follow it up with a little bit of utility from Active Defense. Now, these are the symbols that I run. There are better symbols out there, and when I find them and unlock them, I'll do an update video for symbols. But as it stands, I run Impulse, Luck, Strength, Discharge Recovery, Element of Surprise, Lacerating and Painful Wounds, Shield Power, and things that affect my impulse. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the rotation. Alright, now here's for the rotation. You start off the fight by charging up a fully charged shot of your left click. Follow instantly as it released with a 2, then a V, then X, then 1, then 3. With that combo and the gear and the talent that I've specified before, you will pretty much one-shot any boss that you run into, if not bring it down to 5 to 2 health bars. Now, certain bosses are tankier, and sometimes you're going to need more than one application of EC. When you have to do this, my rule of thumb is while you're fighting the enemy, keep an eye on your allies, see what abilities they're using, and if you have the ability, and you should have the ability because you should be in voice when running anything that you're going to be challenged with, ask if their abilities are ready, because nothing's worse than putting Volatile Curse on a boss and not breaking it. That's 7 seconds that boss has to free roam shit on your face. During normal fights, you get most of your damage from 3 curses and Living Helper. As you can see on the Scissor Miner, just straight up going into Living Helper. Even though he is being healed by that device, he died instantly. You get a lot of damage this way, and you get a lot of damage with Murder of Crows. Now on longer boss fights, you want to have your dot and switch and just continuously left click. What this does is it fills up the gaps that you have in between your abilities. That's embarrassing. Should stop explaining and start worrying about those tiny little things. At any rate, you want to be using your left click and execution stance while you have a dot on a stack of 3, preferably on the enemy. and you use that to fill in the gaps of your cooldowns. Your 2 is a 20-second cooldown. Your 3 is a 21-second cooldown. Your 4 is longer than that, and you only generally want to use it on stationary targets. However, it has a very high output of damage. If you see your tank struggling or any other member of your DPS, you want to use Charm. It's a great utility item, and it keeps them from attacking your allies for at least a couple seconds. Mind you, some enemies are immune to it, so sometimes you might pop it and realize you just wasted a little bit of magic. Now, you have 2 more abilities that I do not use as often because I do not see them necessary, which would be 2 and right click in execution stance. You don't really want to touch those. What that does is it consumes the stacks of paint that you have on your enemy, and you don't really want to waste the damage over time that you have. It doesn't give you the full value generally. And then the other ability doesn't work on bosses, however it does help to reduce damage, and it's C, Evil Eye. Another ability that you just kind of use when you think you need to. Generally you're going to use it on a dagger enemy, whatever you want to call them. It's going to be the enemy that hits your team the hardest. And as instead, I'm going to poke. Generally, we'll be able to take care of anything that you come across that way. At any rate, this has been Warlock Explained with Clip. Hope this has provided you with answers that you may have needed, and or showed you where to improve your character to make you even stronger. Until next time, guys.